you get big data and you need to interpret that big data. And for this you use computer science, machine learning, artificial intelligence to get that interpretation.
I'm Jen Booten with SportTechie, and we're here with Carsten and Koerl from Sportradar, who are making huge moves in the sports industry. So why don't, at first, you tell us kind of what you guys are doing, and obviously about 2 years ago you started making a push in the US. So tell us about that business.
Look, what we are doing at the moment with our business is a transformation. So we had a pretty strong sports betting and predictive business, which is still growing a lot. That is going more into the area of managing like a financial service and managing risk. So this is a kind of development which we do there. We see good growth opportunities. But what we are just doing is a transformation. We are saying all that information, all that technology which we have developed is something which we can also use for a broadcaster industry. We developed that OTT facilities. It's something which we can use for traditional medias to enrich that kind of things. This is all about traffic, how to drive eyeballs. It is a lot about connecting those segments and getting the learning from probabilities into the broadcaster market. There are very interesting things which you can do, and information from sensoric data into the fantasy market, for example. So if you cross-combine this, you have a variety of new products, and nobody knows to what point that leads at the end. But everybody knows this is the future. The opportunities are so unlimited, and I'm working in sport. So I'm really super thrilled that we have this opportunity.
And you guys just struck a major deal with the NBA. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with that and what's going to be coming up this season.
So as you know, for us it's all about data and data points. The NBA provided us that opportunity that they said we want to have a tracking system, and based on this tracking system you get, of course, much more data than you can collect with human beings. We are very good in collecting data with data journalists, with human beings. We have a lot of interfaces, but IoT and sensor technology is something which you see more and more, and this is deployed into any object of the game, the ball, the players, the referees, probably even the trainers in the future. What you get is you get big data, and you need to interpret that big data. And for this you use computer science, machine learning, artificial intelligence to get that interpretation. Before we had that interpretation with human beings, which are interpreting the match by themselves. Now we need to put that technology layer on it and interpret this with technology. So this is the thing which we have there with the NBA.
So when you're saying interpret the data, so obviously you have plenty of resources in place and partnerships to collect this data. So when it goes through the Sportradar system and you're interpreting it and then shooting it out to your partners, whether it's media partners or others, what kind of interpretation are people, your customers or clients, looking for?
It's a visualization. So what you need to find is you need to find a meaning in the tracking data and saying, okay, what is a pick and roll? What is interesting from a shot probability, and how can you use the sensoric data plus the data which is collected with scouts to come up with a new product. And the fascinating thing with machine learning is that the machine learning will tell you things which you don't see with human beings. So you see cross relations there, and then the challenge is how to put it into a product. The first wave of product is of course a basic visualization which you use on your mobile, which you use on the desktop. The next stage is then working on VR, working on systems where you transmit information with chatbots or something where you get more interactive. This is the second wave of products. At the moment, we are working on the first wave, and we like to deploy on the first wave a mobile product where we visualize some of the IoT data and some of the data which we collect on the ground.
And some of this is going, well, I would say much of this is going, in the US at least, to boost fan engagement, right? So tell us a little bit about how you're interacting with these media companies to get fans more engaged, and how, that clearly seems to be the future of how people are consuming sports.
I think it's fair to say what you have to do is you have to collect as much information as you can about the sport, about the players. IoT is one piece, collecting the information is another one, going to Facebook or Google or Twitter, collecting interesting pieces about the sport, and then you need to get this together. And the nice thing getting it together is you have now computers, and you can use machine learning algorithms to combine this. And here you get variety of new products and cross relations between those things. There is a correlation between weather and match results, you won't believe, but you can do it if you have all that information available to compare it and make an engaging product for the fans.
And with fantasy, for example, people are making decisions. This is information that they're able to make decisions based off of for their fantasy leagues. And obviously in Europe, you guys have a different side of your business that is with betting houses. So how do you guys kind of separate those two businesses, and how are those international communities benefiting from all this data?
Well, look, that's a very good question. So there is, of course, the underlying fundament is always sport information and sport data. And the data is fast. So we are speaking about real-time data. We're speaking about data which has a 0.8 or 1 seconds delay. This is something which was at the moment, or is at the moment, not so popular in the US because people don't know how to use it. But if I give you the information about a touchdown 20 seconds before you see it on TV, you will learn that this is a nice information to have. So this is a very basic thing with the real-time information. Looking now on what we are doing with the betting industry, that's quite similar with the fantasy market. It's all about probabilities. So you're predicting a potential outcome or potential results during a match. And there is a mathematical algorithm which can help you with this. We obviously do this very well. We do this since more than 10 years. And I would say we have a very proven concept for more than 40 sports. How can we develop algorithms to predict potential match outcomes? And that is very interesting for your fantasy pick. We think we are very good in this. And we think that this opens a new business opportunity if we are looking to the fantasy market, and we are very heavily developing here products and tools for fantasy player, helping them to improve the game and make it more thrilling.
You guys recently struck a deal with the Handball Federation to do an over-the-top system. So tell us a little bit about that, because that is a unique, it's also in the same thumb of visualization, but that's a whole product that you're providing them.
Yes. Look, there is a trend, as you know. There is a trend with OTT, and the federations and the leagues, I think they realized what happens now is they can go directly to consumers. And this is a very, very strong tool. So the technology is enabling them, the consumer is here, the league is here. They don't need this infrastructure with satellites and broadcasters and cables. You can transmit these things via internet. That's a very basic trend. And we see that is happening all over the place. And I don't tell you any kind of secrets that this is a market which is exploding currently. What we said is, let's have a look to the smaller sports which are not so prominent in TV, which are fighting for getting that audience and being transmitted, help them with a media portal saying we produce that event, we transmit it and we distribute it, and we enrich it with our data, and we enrich it also with editorials which they sometimes have. Many people are saying it doesn't have the scale and it doesn't have the audience to really monetize it, and that's right. It's a reality that those smaller leagues and also amateur leagues doesn't really have that scale and the viewers there. But if you create a complete media portal which you can scale over all those sports, that looks a little bit different. This is always a strong commitment from Sportradar to individual sports. It's not about the major sports. It's not about NBA or NFL. They know very well how to sell their product. It's a very high-priced product. Also a very interesting market, if you ask me, but not a market where Sportradar wants to play.
And recently you also struck a deal in China. So can you talk a little bit about, this is obviously, is this your first major expansion in China, and why is that important for you guys, and what does it entail?
China has two things which are very interesting. One is basketball and the other one is soccer, football. In both sports we are very strong. With the NBA we are very strong if it comes then to China, because the NBA per se is very interesting in China. So it was a very natural step to say, now that we have the NBA deal, that we can make all this fancy technology around visualizing IoT data, that there is a demand in the Chinese market. This is something where I believe, let's say in 5 years, China might pick up with the US from a market size, because the development is very dynamic. That's looking now really far in the future in a dynamic market, and you never know. But looking to what I see and what happens there, I believe it's a qualified guess to say in 5 years that market sizes for our information and services might be identical. It's completely different how they see sport and how they see distribution. They are fully mobile. I think they are far ahead of the US if it comes to mobile consumption. But the way how they do it is completely different to what we are used here. So it's very exciting for us. But the underlying thing, the fundament, the sport and the technology and the sport data is the same.
Find out more about what Sportradar is doing on SportTechie.com.